Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So, I'm drinking my chemistry this morning. And I slept pretty well last night. Had a few interesting dreams. And then I was thinking this morning as I was listening to just stuff on YouTube, just whatever that was running through my playlist. And I was thinking about chemistry and biochemistry and then bonding and then chemistry between people and chemistry between elements and the whole thing, the focusing on the kombucha and why I really wanted to use that as an example, and then acidity, and then alkaline. And I'm like, and I was, getting ready for this morning, just doing my usual routine. I'm in the shower going like, aha. Oh, wait, I have an aha. And I'm in the shower just, doing my hair. And because you can see I washed my hair and blow dried it and put a little makeup on just to kind of look a little presentable for Sunday. But it really hit me, the thing with even people surviving their symptoms, okay? Especially when they're doing the J juice, they're definitely going to survive their symptoms. And then eventually they won't have symptoms because they've mineralized their body and given their body the nutrition that it needs and all that stuff and fixed the weaknesses. And so I was thinking about alkaline and acidic environments. And then I'm looking at sugar and then lactic acid and how we've been demonizing everything. People have been taking specific elements or compound elements and demonizing them. And they don't realize there's a chemical process, because you take one person, right? You take one person out of an organization. They're part of the chemical process of an organization, one person. That's why life is so precious, and that's why our society and the government wants to try to save as many lives as they can that are viable. And so that's why you have to wear a seatbelt. That's why you have to have all these safety measures in place, because every single person is money, is currency. It's energy and biochemistry and your ability to produce and contribute and keep the balance. And so when you have somebody demonizing one person or one element or one thing, they don't understand that it's a whole chemical process. There's a microchemical process and there's a macrochemical process. And so what the holistic industry is doing is they're compartmentalizing all the different elements as if there isn't a chemical relation somewhere, or they don't understand the proper chemistry. And they are demonizing specific elements. So on Alex Jones, they're demonizing fluoride. With the whole chemtrails, they're demonizing barium or mercury or exotic spores or whatever they list out that's coming out of the contrails or the chemtrails. The vaccine industry is demonizing mercury, thimerosal. But they don't realize that these are minerals that the body needs within balance. And you're going to be exposed to the viruses and the bacteria regardless. So, really the vaccines are no different than your environment. It's just being brought in a different way. And then your body goes through a chemical reaction based upon what you brought to the table. And so when someone thinks, so now I'm going to look up something. I'm going to look up with sugar, okay? Because I really want to drive this point home about chemistry. So sugar, which is needed, sugar creates acid. Ah, yeah. Does sugar create acidity? Now, I know you guys probably know this already, and you're like, yes. Sugar alone doesn't trigger acid reflux, though it often found in sugar foods and drinks. Does sugar create? Okay. So there is. Okay, so heartburn is all the acids, because the acids, you need a certain amount of acid to break it. See, that's what the lactic acid is. It breaks things down. Okay, table sugar causes the body to increase the layer of, let me see, I'm looking from Livestrong. So I'm going to see something here real quick. Table sugar causes the body to increase the layer of mucous membrane because it can become a poison because it's too much. And it can bring increased acidity to your digestive tract. Okay. Because it's trying to break it down. However, okay, so here's the thing. All right, I'm going to kill off that now. So here's the thing. You need sugar and you need like the bacteria, because the bacteria byproduct is the acids, the lactic acid that breaks down the cabbage. So it breaks it down so your body can absorb it. And that's why when you drink it, it has amazing results when it comes to your body absorbing, because of the healing process. Okay? So sugar and then lactic acid are like a major acid force on the body, and it causes imbalances. So this is the thing. So it has a whole chemical process. So the fermentation is a chemical process as if it was your stomach. And you need very harsh types, you need acids to be able to break your food down. Too much acid will break your cells down. Too little acid won't allow you to break the food down. And so then guess what? The food goes right through your digestive tract, doesn't get broken down, and right out your pooper. Okay? So people who live from an alkaline type of standpoint, where they don't bring anything with like any acids, it's all just like bleach. It kills everything in sight. You're going to actually harm your body. Like seriously, you're going to destroy your body because it's too harsh of a chemical process at alkaline. And that's like alkaline water that has a high pH. Like if you had like Kangen water and you turn it up to 9, that's alkaline, and then that's like has an antibiotic effect. It kills everything inside. It has a high electrical charge, a high positive charge. Okay? Or a high negative charge. I'm sorry, a high negative charge. Sorry about that. And then you take something then like a sugar or anything that's acidic, that has a bunch of acids in it. Okay? Like a whole bunch of sugar or a whole bunch of lactic acid, like probiotics. Okay? And you put them together. That will do the same thing that an alkaline type of environment will do, or an alkaline type of drink, or an alkaline type of lifestyle. Those are both extreme sides of the spectrum. Very extreme. So anyone that speaks from the acidic type of standpoint or the alkaline type of standpoint have no idea what the hell they're doing with chemistry. They have to realize it's a balance in between, because you need sugar, because you need the energy. Because here's the thing, when you don't have any sugar in your body, no carbs, okay, when you don't have any like you're not bringing in the lactobacillus, and even though you're going to go and exercise and create lactic acid, your body is stagnant. It won't be able to break things down properly. So the biochemistry is off. And then when you do like go and exercise, you create a very temporary lactic acid, which is destroying your muscles and your tissues. And then the body has to then, like I was saying before, when people age, they're going to rob reserves. And of course, if you have already leaky gut, you have a biochemical process that's off, so it's not breaking things down so your body can absorb it. You're not absorbing nutrition, so you are depleting your reserves because your body's still going to go through trauma. And especially if you're an exercise enthusiast, especially if you're doing labor-intensive work, especially if you live in environments that are pretty much fluctuating all the time, so you have to keep adapting, and upset homeostasis happens all the time, you're going to run out of reserves. Okay? So you need to have a certain amount of lactic acid coming in, a certain amount of lactobacillus. You need a certain amount of sugar to create the energy force to be able to break it down. So also too, you need a certain amount of salt, because salt is also the energizing force. It also helps you, and then that's what Kevin is going to go more into, is the other benefits of salt besides the energizing force to be able to create the biochemical processes. But there's other stuff with salt, and you guys can read about what pink Himalayan salt does. And you have the minerals. And so it's a whole chemical process. So that's why being afraid of the barium or the GMO or the pesticides really should fall on deaf ears with you guys, because you guys are bringing in the right chemistry. So that way you can have the right balance of chemistry. You have your systems finally able to handle the food supply and adapt to your environment. Because no matter what, you're going to walk into an area where it's going to be colder, and you're going to have to adapt. Bodies that can't adapt to their environment will not survive it, and you're seeing it already. Okay? So there's no way to live an alkaline lifestyle or an acidic lifestyle and survive it for a long period of time. You have to understand the balance in between. But if you're taking the things like kombuchas, where it's all acid, whether it's sugar acid, okay, too much sugar, and not enough of a balance worth of salt and electrolytes and all that, and then too much lactic acid, you're drinking up straight up acid. It's going to destroy, and it's destroying people, like doing the opposite of vinegars. And that's a chemical process. But the whole point behind the lactobacillus is that it breaks things down, because the byproduct is lactic acid. That lactic acid is breaking down that cabbage and kale. No different than in your body. When you have the lactobacillus, the lactic acid that you're drinking, it's breaking your food down so you can absorb the nutrients. But you drink so much of it without balancing it with other elements, it then turns into an actual acid-based type of thing where it would actually destroy you. Okay? So it's what it's being paired with is really key. So when you're pairing the lactobacillus with the salt, because the salt, the electrolytes, offset the too much acidity, the too much lactic acid. Then you have the micro and macro nutrition in the cabbage and kale. That gets broken down because people try to process cabbage and kale, and they have the hardest time. Have you ever seen somebody change their diet to like all vegan and vegetarian, and they're eating just cabbage and kale? And they have a few superficial differences. Yes, they may lose some of the bloat and some of the excess stuff, but then guess what? They become really, really skinny. So when someone is really, really fat and bloated and water retention, all that stuff, and then they change their diet to like an alkaline diet, a vegan, vegetarian diet, and then they're losing all this weight. And so while they're losing weight, people are like, oh God, you look beautiful. Oh my God, you don't look as bloated and as inflamed than you did before. Wow, what an amazing. And then they don't realize that this person's on a death trajectory. So that time from when they were bloated and swollen and all this inflammation, from the point of where they reach a certain point where there is a certain balance, what it looks like a balance, because their body's reflecting what looks like balance, because they're looking better than they did before. But then guess what? The body isn't stopping. It's eventually going to look sallow. And then all you're going to see is their muscles. There's going to be hardly any fat. And then their body's going to be cannibalizing itself, because it's not taking in enough nutrition to kind of keep them alive on a daily basis, but not enough reserves to deal with trauma, whether a very benign trauma like walking into a sort of a chaotic environment, to like, natural disasters or domestic violence or anything else that people endure through dealing with the population. Okay, so eating every day is like putting gas in your car, like, when it needs to. But why cars die is because the actual tune-ups and the maintenance and the way the intention of the car being built only has so many miles. So the intention of the allopathic and holistic industry is to only give you so many miles. And it's not like their intention. I don't think they even know that they can actually prolong and keep you regenerating, because the way in which they've created maintenance schedules with humans is they only give you a certain amount of miles. And it's also relative to what you bring to the table too. So if you're bringing to the table major mineral and nutritional deficits, and you already have cancer, disease, and chronic illness, then it won't matter what protocols and what diets you put them on. or what they put you on, because you're not going to be absorbing the nutrition, and your body's going to be coming in with deficits, and it's going to be stealing from Peter to pay Paul, or incurring deficits by trying to pay off balances, I guess. Kevin doesn't like the Peter Paul principle, which I completely understand. So he'll use another type of analogy to understand, or another analogy is you're robbing minerals and nutrition from different parts of your systems to make sure that your vital organs stay going. And this is why people are losing their hair, or they're losing the minerals in their hair, or they're aging, because you can see what is aging. Well, you can actually see the skin become more thin and paper thin, losing collagen, losing fat. You're seeing lumpiness in people. You're seeing extreme malnutrition. Like, they're so skinny that you're wondering, how the hell are they even surviving? Okay, so that's what goes on when people do not understand the balance between acidity, an acidic environment, and an alkaline environment. So if you're coming from those two standpoints, you're going from one extreme to the other, and it's both going to kill you. And some faster than others relative to what you bring to the table. And so, yeah, so in the shower, I was thinking about that, because, I mean, I've said about acidic and alkaline, but to really break it down, why lactic acid, why we need lactic acid, why we need sugar, why we need salt, is because we have to be able to break down the food supply we're bringing in. Now, here's the thing, the Whole Foods, see, Whole Foods actually is working against people. This is what the kicker is that when you bring in Whole Foods and you have a body that's inept in breaking things down, like seriously, in a chemical bonding process, there's no way a person can derive nutrition from Whole Foods if their system is already compromised. And they're like, oh, well, then I'll just, people are like, oh, I'll just take some fermented foods, because yes, fermented foods is huge in the holistic industry. It's been touted as something, the end all be all, which it is, but it has to be paired in the right way. And it has to be utilized in the right way. And you have to understand what pain is and symptoms. And so, yeah, simply, eating fermented foods is going to bring up symptoms, yes. And whether or not a person survives their symptoms or dies from their symptoms is based upon their mineral deposits, their access to nutrition. And then look, the people that are eating Whole Foods, they're eating fermented foods, are obviously not understanding their symptoms. And as soon as they have symptoms from eating the fermented foods, they stop doing that food, or they lessen that intake of the food that triggers the symptoms. Okay. And then they go back to an alkaline or acidic lifestyle. Because pain is always going to be I'm trying to think of how to say this. Pain is going to level the playing field. And how you interpret pain is whether or not you're going to live or die. I don't even know if that's even the right analogy. But pain's going to be that thing that people are going to have to figure out and negotiate with. And if people can't figure out pain and why it exists, then they will do their damnedest, which they are, to avoid it. Okay? And so why I know I saved that lady on Dr. Phil, that myself and Bridget and Angie were going up against. And the other lady, I don't even remember who she was, but the one that's like, oh, I had a stroke, and on J Juice, and she was already set to have a stroke anyways. But the fact that she survived it is a testament to the juice. She'll never probably say that it was the juice, but we don't know if she wasn't doing the J Juice and she had a stroke, would she have survived it? She would have a 50-50 chance. So I actually have 50% responsibility in saving that woman's life with the J Juice when she had that stroke. Because when you have a stroke, it means the body is finally healing. Or when you have a heart attack, and I'm using the terms in the allopathic holistic industry, but when you have energy forces that are trying to now fix the weaknesses. The allopathic holistic will call it strokes and heart attacks because that's how they compartmentalize and then diagnose you for medications and procedures. But when you're on the J juice and you get a healing symptom in your cardiovascular system or a healing symptom in any one of your systems, it's a body being able to take the minerals that you have given it and have on reserve, and it's able to finally take care of the issue. Okay, finally. And when people don't survive their symptoms, it's because they don't have enough nutrition or mineral reserves in their body to take care of that issue. Because how many people have died from strokes? How many people have died from heart attacks? When you look at the actual coroner report, the autopsy, or a doctor would just say, hey, yes, this person died of a heart attack. Why did they die? Because their body was depleted of minerals and nutrition to be able to handle that healing process. The fact that we get symptoms and we survive them says that we have enough insurance in our body to handle it. But if you come from an acidic type of standpoint, where you're feeding your body only lactic acid, only pure probiotics, with no other chemical bonding forces like electrolytes mixed together. No, and it's not taking cabbage and breaking it down to a juice, and then taking Sole and having that separate, and then taking pure probiotic like a kefir grain or something, and then try to do them separately or try to mix them together and then drink it. No, it's the actual chemical fermentation process with cabbage, pink Himalayan salt, and water, or kale and cabbage, pink Himalayan salt, and water. And then you actually have them bond, do cross-functional communication. Okay, when you have 3 separate people working on the same project, totally not on the same page, there's no way you're going to get an actual project done correctly because there's no cross-functional communication. But when you actually put them together in the same room, then the chemistry happens. Things happen. What we have right now with the internet and having team building with the internet is that bonding force, that chemical force, the biochemistry that brings people together or repels them apart. So even the internet can be that cross-functional communication, putting people together that communicate, whether by eyes, by sight, by sound, is a chemical process. But see, when you put like a cabbage and kale just pureed with no other chemical reaction except the puree, and you put Sole water in a separate jar, and then you put some kind of probiotic in a separate jar, the only environment that's bringing them together is the air. Air is not a strong enough force to create a biochemical cross-functional communication or a chemical process. When you have Sole and then a probiotic and then cabbage and kale pureed, there isn't a strong enough bonding force. So that's why they don't work very well. And even when you bring them into your body, it's not, you don't have, your body isn't going to be able to negotiate it correctly. It's when they're putting it together, because believe me, people have done it. They're doing the probiotics. They're taking all of their kefirs and their kombuchas and their apple cider vinegars, and then they're eating vegan and vegetarian and cabbage and kale, and they're even juicing it. Oh, and they're doing their Sole too. But I have yet to see anybody take those and say that they've reversed all of their issues, and they're reversing the aging process, and they're not aging. Like I said, not reversing the aging process. They're not. No. Because guess what? Once the pain comes around, let's say they do that. They take the separate things. They compartmentalize my drink, and they're not doing the J juice, and they don't really know about J juice. Let's say they try to do it, with the understanding J juice and the pain. Okay, so someone that's not doing J juice or has heard of J juice will stop when the pain happens. So that's done with. But let's say it's someone like Gray Wiggins. Okay, I'll just use you for example, Gray. All right, you do the separation, you do the probiotic, you do the cabbage and kale already broken down because you've pureed it, and then you do the Sole. Okay, how much of that are you going to drink? Do you really think there's a bonding process between the cabbage and the kale and then the fermented? Because when you ferment grains, there's a bunch of sugar in that, because grains is a carb, right? And then you have, I guess, the salt water. I don't see that happening or working at the level that if you just put everything together and then bind it all together, you'll have a stronger communication when it actually chemically processes it together versus a very quick put them all together and drink it. No, your biochemistry is so off anyways that even when you take those things in separate ways, it's not going to be able to really realize it the way that you would realize it from from the jelly juice. Okay. But hey, someone will try that. All right. So yeah. So what's really profound is the fact that when someone survives their symptoms, it means they have enough mineral deposits and nutrition to be able to handle, and it saved their life. So yeah, I saved that lady's life. So so I just wanted to come from that standpoint, because this is all, the human body is chemistry and biochemistry. Everything is broken down to an elemental composition, compound elements and singular elements, elements and compound elements. But they have to have the right elements and compound elements put together with an intention that has to be aligned with the human body. And when you're taking chemical processes like kombuchas that have major acid, because again, acid is needed to break things down. Acid and energy. So sugar is energy, salt is energy, probiotics or lactic acid is needed to break things down, but too much, it will destroy you. And that's what I'm saying, when people are running and they're doing all this exercise and the body creates lactic acid from that, from the glucose and all that stuff that you're doing, that you have in your body, as well as what you're taking in, because that's what electrolytes are too. There's also the sugar. Okay. It creates lactic acid, and then that acid actually destroys muscles. And then your body is then going and trying to get other minerals to then go and fix and heal the damage that's done from the too much lactic acid buildup. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, so that's what I'm saying to you guys. Stop listening to everything in the allopathic holistic. Understand everything compartmentalized, which they're doing. When you put jelly juice together, study my information in its separate little world. Okay, study what acidic is. Study what alkaline is. Study what sugar is, the goods and the bads of the sugar. Study what salt is, good and bad of salt. Study what water is. Study everything independent, and then realize that there's a chemical process when you put them all together. Okay, and then why certain chemical processes work against the body and why will work for the body. But then you have to understand pain. So you guys have to understand if you survive your symptoms, when you're doing J juice, you're going to survive your symptoms unless you're in hospice. If you're in hospice and you're doing J juice, and then you're also drinking pineapple juice and taking a lot of different prescription drugs, there's no way you're going to be able to bring in a lot of minerals and lactic acid and nutrition. It's going to be something that you're going to transition on. But you have to deal with the pain. The pain means the body is finally getting the minerals it didn't have before. And also too, it's not going to rob the body of the minerals that are left in a body that's basically ridden with cancer. See, that's the difference. When somebody's in hospice, they have very little reserves. So when you're dying, the body is cannibalizing itself because it has nothing, it can't absorb anything else. It can't, and the person can hardly eat because they can't even process the food. So they get them on like these, like intravenous or a food tube that has just liquid. And so they're not building enough a nutritional reserve basis to work from to heal all of the weaknesses in a hospice-ridden body. And so when you're doing J juice, if you're on hospice, it's going to be a little bit at a time to handle the upset of homeostasis. And you got to know that the pain is there for a reason, because the body is now fixing all the issues. But if you stop doing the J juice in hospice, then the body's going to go grab their reserves in the body until the reserves in the vital organs aren't being taken care of. There's not enough reserves to take care of your vital organs because there's nothing. So when people are like concentration camp victims, and they're full of bones. Okay, all they are is bones, and that's what you see when somebody is in hospice, is that their body has finally cannibalized itself, taken all of the minerals and the nutrition from different parts of the body, trying to keep the brain going, trying to keep the heart going, trying to keep the liver going, but even the liver's shutting down, trying to keep the kidneys going, but even the kidneys are having a hard time. Okay, and then eventually they just die. They don't die from J juice because it has the mineral reserves, it has the nutrition, has the water, it has the the lactic acid that it needs. But no, the body didn't have enough reserves to keep it going, and there's still issues, and they aren't taking in enough the J juice to take care of the issues, so they're done. But when you're on J juice and you're not in hospice and you are surviving your symptoms, which you will because you have enough reserves, when someone does J juice and they're not so sick, they won't die from J juice. Nobody dies from J juice, but yes, you'll have symptoms, healing symptoms, but nobody will die from J juice because it has all of the mineral reserves and the nutrition the body absolutely needs. It has all of this. The sodium chloride, pink Himalayan salt dissolved in water, plus then the lactic acid, plus then the nutrition from the cabbage and kale, the micro and macro nutrition. And then there's specific diets so you understand what's in the food supply. And you can have GMO and Monsanto Roundup pesticide foods, and it's going to be fine. You can breathe the chemtrailed air and you can use your 5G and you won't have an issue. Okay? See, it isn't just one single element that would cause someone to die. That's why people say, like, oh, that person died of 5G. That person died of chemtrails. That person died of... No. There's a whole chemical process that goes on in your body of when a person dies. Okay? So, you've already had to really, really depleted your resources. Like, seriously, depleted your resources for someone to even blame J juice if they're taking J juice. It means that you basically paved the way for your own death, and now you're trying to recoup. And you're not willing to deal with the pain, and you're not drinking in the juice. So, yeah, a person on hospice that's going to try to do J juice can never, ever compensate what they don't have unless they're willing to go and do the work. It ain't some easy cure like you see in the allopathic holistic. Oh, yeah, I'll just take cannabis and not feel the pain and everything's great. Yeah, people that survive cannabis from their cancer because they have enough mineral reserves to kind of deal with stuff. But they stop the programming of the cancer, so the cancer isn't going and reprogram everything on a quick basis. No, it stops the programming immediately, but then the body is going to then go and try to patch up those issues by stealing all the different reserves, and that's why people still degrade in the system. And then who knows when the next weakness and get exploited by the cancer virus. See, people don't realize that their own body, yes, can heal, but if you're not giving it what it needs and having it stay there, not be like, oh, I'm just giving my body gas every day. I'll just eat alkaline and eat whole foods and your body can't even process it. Yeah, but on the longer term basis, as you are committing trauma to your body by smoking pot or doing other things, the body then has to go and fix all of the issues that you've created by your belief system. And then one day you're going to run out of minerals, run out of nutrients. And then you're going to think, oh, I'm going to eat vegan, vegetarian. And your body can't even break it down because you're not really getting in the right chemical process. Yeah, you're doing fermented foods, but you're doing the kombuchas because you don't like J juice because it's too salty, but you need electrolytes. So then you go to the other fermented foods that have a bunch of sugar. And so that sugar acid plus that lactic acid, that is a byproduct of the lactobacillus, it acts like an actual fluoride acid if it had no water in it. I mean, I'm going to use fluoride as an example because people have been demonizing fluoride and then saying, oh yeah, when you take straight fluoride and you pour it onto the concrete, eats away at the concrete. Well, yeah, duh. No one's going to be taking straight fluoride, but if it's mixed in with other elements and other types and it has a chemical process, it actually has a benefit, okay? Like an antibiotic benefit. It kills bacteria that's in your mouth. All right, but when you take straight up sugar and you ferment it with a fruit, and then you create this lactic acid. Now you have a double power force of acid that's going to destroy your cells. And then when you're destroying your cells, your body has to go and try to heal it. But of course you can't. You have enough mineral deposits and nutrition in your body to be able to heal it. But then what happens is when you aren't able to actually absorb the nutrition, you're not really processing the food correctly, so you don't have enough mineral deposits, enough nutritive deposits. And then guess what? That's why you see people who, like, what's his name, the cannabis dude, that's why you see him aging, because his years of being on cannabis has destroyed him, because the body has to save itself by cannibalizing itself. That's what aging is that you don't have enough reserves to repair the damage, so the body steals it from other places of your body. And that's why Rick Simpson is dying, is aging, because his whole cannabis belief system has robbed him of his nutrition, because he doesn't know how to negotiate the elements. He doesn't understand biochemistry. All he's doing is being reactive. And every single person who turns to cannabis, who plays the acidic alkaline, who plays the, I'm going to eat whole foods, but I don't have the ability to break it down really truly and save the reserves, are causing not only themselves injuries, but also the people around them. And they think, if I don't have any symptoms, everything's great. There'll become a day, those of you who are practicing the cannabis game, to where you're not going to have enough mineral reserves to handle the injuries of your heart or your brain or your lungs or anything else. And then you will just have a heart attack or a stroke because you have practiced the cannabis game. Because the cannabis game is basically stopping the healing process. Okay? And so, when you stop the healing process and you leave weaknesses, and then you have the cancer, and then you have these symptoms, and then you're just cannibalizing yourself. Because I'm thinking, like, okay, you stop, so you have a symptom, and then you're like, I don't want any symptoms. That means the body is taken. Okay, then the body is taken the reserves, and it's stopped. Now you're taking cannabis or any kind of chemotherapy, whatever, you stop that process. You're not bringing in the right nutrition, or you're bringing nutrition, but the body can't negotiate with it. It can't really absorb it. And so now you have more weaknesses. Now you have weaknesses in your heart and your lungs and all that stuff. And so then, you stop the body from even taking the reserves. That's probably, because when you have a symptom, that means the body's able to take the reserves, and then you have the healing process, because pain is healing. So when someone stops the healing programming, so when you have cancer, when you have disease, all these different things, that the body healing the weaknesses, and you stop that programming, so the body's not even taking those reserves, but it's still depleting. So it's not taking it to the right areas. It's being used up. It's not being used up in the right areas. And so you continue to have weaknesses, or it's being distributed somewhere else. See, that's the thing about the different chemotherapies. It stops the programming. But what programming is it? It's a healing process. It anesthetizes. And so when a person goes through symptoms on the J juice, they're bringing in the minerals, the nutrition, the water, the lactic acid. They're having these symptoms. They're surviving these symptoms, obviously. And then they'll have it for a certain amount of time. And then eventually they've completely strengthened and fixed that weakness. And so they never have to deal with it again. And then there's another symptom in another part of the body, because you have layers and layers and layers of issues. So you can have layers and layers of healing. So when a person brings in cannabis, or they bring in other stuff, it's okay in very small amounts if you're doing the J juice. But if you're not doing the J juice and you're bringing in cannabis and chemotherapy, then you're going to see the body age, because then those programs, you're changing the program in the body. And so these aggressive minerals and drugs are stopping the programming, robbing the body of nutrition, because it's throwing balances, it's bringing up hormones that also will cause degradation and weaknesses in the vital organs. And this is why you see people who then have issues from the cannabis. It changes their perception. It changes their biochemistry. And then it makes them to where when bigger issues come about, they won't be able to handle it. Yeah, so I'm just thinking, I'm looking at what is that process? Yeah. So once, yeah, because you see people, that like Rick Simpson. Yeah, so the body is still stealing resources to keep. So yeah, the body still steals resources to keep the heart going. So even though, yeah, so you stop the program with cannabis so you don't feel pain. So then your rest of your body decays, but it keeps the vital organs going. That's what makes sense. Because remember, the vital organs are what is the most important in the body: the brain, the heart, the lungs, the kidney, the liver. So when you're taking cannabis for cancer in different places, you're stopping the healing programming, so you can't heal that weakness with the nutrition because you're not taking in, even though you take nutrition, it can't negotiate it. So it's pointless. And then the body then steals resources since you're not bringing in the resources, and you stop the pain or stop the healing process. So that's done with. So you're never ever going to strengthen that weakness, but you won't feel the pain. But you're not going to die yet because you still have enough minerals and nutrition that you saved up, but it's going to be depleted soon. That's what it is. So the thing that's why people are able to live for a certain amount of time on pot or chemotherapy is the fact they have enough resources in their body to keep their brain going, to keep their heart going, and to keep their lungs and their liver going. But eventually they'll deplete those resources to where it will not then save them. And the cannabis is just going to anesthetize you. But the thing is, you're not fixing the biochemistry in your body to be able to then absorb the nutrition so you can have reserves. And that's why you see like my skin come back, my hair come back, my demeanor, my everything about me has changed since like 3 years ago. Because I finally have now enough reserves, enough minerals, and enough nutrition. And so whatever I do daily, the food supply keeps me going. And then I have enough stuff on the side that when I do enter into some kind of traumatic event, whether it's really benign or super, super serious, my body can recover quickly without stealing resources. That's what it comes down to, is you got to have enough. Just like when someone survives in our society or lives in our society, when you are living paycheck to paycheck, you're basically living as like people who are on cannabis. Okay, you're just kind of living for the daily food that you're taking in, but you don't have anything stored up, really. And so the body's going to take, so when the J juice is like having a little bit of a savings account, not a whole lot where you're like just hoarding, but you have a little bit of a savings account. Okay. Yeah. But when someone is, is doing the cannabis and doing the chemotherapy and all the different protocols and the detoxes, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Eventually, one fire or you miss work one day, you will be at a deficit and then potentially dead. Now, I know, it won't really happen like that in society when it comes to living paycheck to paycheck, living another job. But that's the type of scenario in your body. When you're doing the cannabis and the detoxes and trying to live the alkaline and acidic lifestyle, you're not keeping the biochemistry to where you have the reserves and you actually strengthen the weaknesses. See, it's not even just having the reserves. People are like, well, I have all this fat. People do survive off their fat, but eventually it's going to be done with. And that's people's been insurance when they have cancers. They have enough belly to kind of keep them going while they're going through chemotherapy. But when you have all these reserves of fat, it's going to be gone through, but it's the wrong idea. I was thinking of something and I got caught up in that. So yeah, when a person is okay. I lost that. That's okay. But yeah, I mean, just because you're hoarding fat or hoarding cortisol, it's causing imbalances. So there's a balance of keeping your insurance alive. Okay, there's a balance. You don't want to hoard too much and have too little. You'd want to be living paycheck to paycheck. You want to be able to have a nice balance of your currency, of your minerals, of your fats, of all the nutrition, the macro and micronutrition. And so when somebody's doing chemotherapy and doing cannabis, they're not fixing the weaknesses either. So the weaknesses still stay there. And then the body is constantly trying to then steal. So that's probably also too what happens. And that's why you keep having symptoms. And then you keep taking your cannabis. So the body says, fine, I'm not going to, deal with that. And so they just find a way to keep the heart going and keep the brain going and keep the liver going and keep the kidneys going. But the rest of your body is going to, malfunction. And then when you have no more reserves left, that's right, when you have no more reserves left, because you've seen Rick Simpson, he's losing reserves. Anyone that's aging is losing their reserves. Eventually, that's when people die of heart attacks. Okay? So it's the vital organs that are being kept alive, from the body stealing resources because the person is not fixing the weaknesses. And how do you fix the weaknesses? You bring a specific chemical process, understand what pain is, and deal with it, not try to hide behind the freaking cannabis. And they finally turn everything around. And then when you're just walking around doing your daily stuff, and even your food intake and your lifestyle, like your food and how you deal with your body and everything has to do with then what your job is. So if your job is going to the coal mines every single day, or you're throwing steel, or you're doing labor intensive work, you need a lot more minerals. You're going to need meat and milk, and as well as vegetables and fruits and carbohydrates and grains and breads and all that stuff. You're going to need to have processed foods, and you'll need the hormones from the animals, because that's not only a quick dose of minerals and hormones and nutrients, but it gives you the protein, it gives you the stamina and the endurance to stay at your labor-intensive job. So that's why we have such a separation in our society. We have all the vegans and vegetarians that like to just sit behind their desk. They're not doing real huge endurance, labor-intensive stuff. How many vegan and vegetarians are sitting behind an office or conducting therapies or whatever, and they're not doing too much arduous work. They're not throwing concrete or doing drywall. Okay. I see vegans and vegetarians are just like, they're doing very benign stuff. So yeah, so they can afford to say, oh yeah, I can eat vegetables and fruits and live and blah, 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 for a certain amount of time. No. Then you have all the carnivores, which are great too, but if they don't have enough of the fermentation in the vegetables and the macronutrition, and they have issues in their body, they're not going to be able to process all that meat and all that stuff, so they get stuck in their system, and it causes more imbalances. So either way, both sides have to understand balance and stop demonizing each other. Understand, okay, if you're going to throw steel, or you're going to be on the railroad, then yeah, you're going to need meat and milk, and you need to process it out of your body too. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to go. I got things to do. But you guys have a great day, and hopefully this makes sense. Okay, bye.